Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Red Donkey Projections. I'm Lucas, and I have Eric here as always.
Hey guys.
And today we'll be discussing how close our 2020 Senate election predictions were to the actual results. This is the actual result, and this is our prediction. As you can see, we did get a lot of states wrong. Well, not a lot, but we did get a few wrong, the crucial ones wrong, and the margins we did get quite wrong as well. So we did want to discuss this and talk about polling here as well, because it did not go correctly. And with that being said, let's get right into it. Let's start with, the obvious safe states that we did get correct. So we got, Oregon, Illinois, we got the Northeast. We also did end up getting, we'll talk about this map later. We also did get most of the safe red seats correctly.
The one safe that actually didn't go safe was Virginia, I think. It went in 13 points right below 15. And speaking of which, let's state our margins. Less than 1% is a tilt, 1 to 5 is a lean, and then 5 to 15 is likely, and then everything above 15 is a safe. Virginia went in 13 points and not above 15 points, which makes it a likely. So that's the one state that we were pretty surprised actually didn't go to Mark Warner more than 15 points.
And with that, also New Mexico as well. Ben Ray Lujan, he also did not get over 15%, which we were also surprised about. That also went in a likely. Other than that, I do think we got the other safe states all correctly. Let's now quickly talk about the likely states that we did get that went in a likely margin that we didn't get correctly. And there is actually quite a few here. We'll start first with Kansas. Kansas, we were kind of expecting a little bit because Kansas is this deep red state and Chris Klobuchar didn't win the primary. But we were thinking, looking at the polling, maybe Barbara Boyer had a little bit more of a shot than people were giving her. And clearly we were very much wrong about that. Polling this election for the Senate in particular was admittingly it was a mess. I feel like what happened was there wasn't enough ticket splitting with Donald Trump on the ticket as well as the Senate candidate. A lot of people ended up voting down ballot, which definitely hurt the Democratic Senate candidates here. And polling, I'm not sure what exactly happened very wrong because they did get it pretty accurately in 2018. But I think it might have been people like kind of lying a bit about who they supported. And that kind of did throw the poll numbers off. So Kansas, that one did go in a likely. We did predict it as going in a lean. And same with South Carolina. I was kind of surprised with this one because it was called pretty early in the night. It got called, and clearly it went in a larger margin than we expected to. We thought it'd go between 4 and 5 points. It ended up going over 5 points, so that ended up being a likely as well. And Kentucky and Alabama, these two were two that we should have probably gotten correctly. I'm not sure why we got Kentucky wrong. We kind of overestimated how much Mitch McConnell will be hurt by his unpopularity. Clearly, Kentucky was very, very deep red enough to vote against Amy McGrath and vote for Mitch McConnell. Eric, you can head in and talk about Alabama a bit.
Yeah, so we thought Doug Jones had at least a bit of a chance, right? We gave Alabama to Tommy Tuberville, who did end up winning, but in a likely margin. And clearly, 2018 was kind of it was kind of like well, how do I put this? Or whenever Doug Jones's election was, it was kind of a fluke.
Right.
It was kind of an upset because this was a one-time thing, and Roy Moore wasn't necessarily the best candidate, and therefore he barely won, right? But we don't have this type of situation here. We have a more simple football coach that is running for the Senate that's not that controversial, which is why he was really able to sweep this. Doug Jones's career isn't over yet. There are potential talks that the Biden administration might take him in for some sort of cabinet position, but that's all still a rumor. And another thing to consider, right? The Republicans are ahead, but that does not necessarily mean they have won yet. there is still two key races that we will get into later in this episode that could really determine the outcome of this race. And and there are a lot of eyes right now in this race. I'll just put it like that.
Right. I agree with you. In Alabama, Doug Jones did win in a 2017 special election. That was after Jeff Sessions was nominated to become the secretary. The attorney general. My head is not working today. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. By the way.
Yes.
But anyway, I was actually reading about Tommy Tuberville, how he was kind of trying to avoid debating Doug Jones. He took a more safe approach against Doug Jones. It was definitely interesting to see his comments like about World War II and about the three branches of government, but we won't get into that in this video. But one of the states that we did get correctly was Mississippi. Mississippi went under 15 points. I gotta say, I think that Mike Espy actually did a decent job here. Getting less than 15% of the vote was pretty impressive. He did do worse here. He did worse here than he did in the special election against Clyde Smith a few years ago, but I think he still did decently. Texas, we also got correct. John Cornyn did beat MJ Hagar by, I think it was around, I want to say 10 points, actually less than 10 points. And that's one thing we're going to discuss in this episode, how MJ Hagar actually, I think she did outperform Steve Bullock in Montana. I think Texas did go under 10 points and Montana went exactly 10. We'll discuss that later. Another state that we got incorrectly, let's head now into the states that went in lean that we didn't expect to go in lean. So, oopsies. One of the states was Arizona. We overestimated Mark Kelly's support here. We were thinking more than 5 points. We were thinking slightly above 5 points, 6 points, somewhere around there, 6 points, but it was closer than expected. And I think this one was one that we probably should have gotten correctly. We put it as lean every single episode until that final one. We should have kept it the same. But this one is going to be flipped, and Mark Kelly will be inaugurated on November 30th because this was a special election. So, what other states were there that we got incorrectly? Michigan, I gotta say, was a pretty big surprise of how tight it was there. It was close in 2016. We didn't expect to be this close this time. It was around like 1 point-ish, 1 point something. That was very surprising. I was expecting, and we were both expecting it to also be a likely state between, 5, 6-ish points. Polls showed Peters up by like 8, and we were kind of surprised that it went in that narrow of a margin. But this one will stay blue. All right. I think that might be it for the lean states that we did get incorrectly. Are we ready to head into our flips now, Eric? The states that we got incorrectly completely?
I think, it's time to talk about them,
Right. But first, Colorado we got correctly. We expected to go between 5 and 15. It went around there. Alaska we got correctly as well, went around 10 points. So those we did get correctly, but let's head into the ones that we put the wrong color for. Let's start with the one that we 100% should have gotten correctly, but we didn't. Iowa, we probably should have gotten this one correctly. We put this one as tilt D. Every single episode, you can look at it, every single episode up until that last episode, we put it as tilt R or toss-up. We completely underestimated how well Joni Ernst would do, and again, we underestimated how wrong the polls would have been. The margins were showing a tight race. Like, one was showing Greenfield up, one was showing Ernst up, but what ended up happening was a much larger margin of victory expected. And to be honest, I was kind of thinking, okay, an Ernst victory is possible to happen, but I was thinking it would be like, less than 1 point of a win. Definitely not within a likely margin. And this one's really one that we can't really make an excuse for. Like, when we get to Maine, we can talk about why it's likely, and and why it's not like, fully reliably likely. We'll explain that later in the episode. But Iowa went in about 6 points. It's just so interesting to see how Joni Ernst completely messed up in that debate. It didn't do anything. Iowa still goes red, in a pretty solid red as well. And I think Trump definitely helped. Trump being on the top of the ticket could have helped the down ballot there. I think there's definitely a chance that a lot of Republicans went out and voted. They voted for Biden on the presidential level, but then they down balloted Republicans. So that ended up being pretty bad for the Democrats in Congress. Yeah. And we saw that in the House as well.
That's exactly what I really wanted to talk about, Lucas. That was the one thing I wanted to make a point right after you were talking. The thing is, it's kind of uncontroversial to say that Donald Trump has really kind of polarized the Republican Party, and he's really, swung it to the right. And the thing is that, Donald Trump is an individual person that's, in theory, supposed to represent the whole Republican Party. But the thing is, Donald Trump is his own self, and then there are other Republicans that are known for their own things that have also made some sort of reputation for themselves.
Right, and I think that, Trump, the polls are still wrong at the presidential level. The margins were definitely off, but the polls did predict the right winners or at least most of the right winners on the presidential level. Now, on the Senate level, a lot of that didn't happen, and on the House level especially, that didn't happen. So that was Iowa, and I do want to bring up a pretty interesting map that our good friend God of Politics actually retweeted on Twitter that I thought was very interesting, comparing how Democratic Senate candidates did compared to Biden. Iowa was slightly blue, because I did expect this to happen. I expected Joni Ernst to perform. Actually, I should just be saying Teresa Greenfield performed a little bit better than Joe Biden did, and Joe Biden still performed terribly in the state of Iowa. There was very little difference between his performance in 2020 and Hillary Clinton's performance in 2016. And that is, not really unexpected. But what was a little bit more unexpected was the state of Maine. And I think we should probably discuss Maine first. I was thinking of this going in order of most expected, the one we got wrong, to least expected, but I think we got to talk about Maine now. Maine was a huge surprise. It was a huge upset. I don't think any prediction channel from what I've seen got Maine correctly. Even, the more Republican-leaning ones got Maine wrong. They put this one as a win for Sarah Gideon, and everything was pointing towards that. If you look at it, every single poll showed Sarah Gideon leading. Not one poll, except for maybe one in July, showing Collins up by 8. We kind of brushed that off as what's the word, outlier. But it was very interesting to see how Susan Collins was able to win. Early in the night, it was looking like Susan Collins was going to win in a pretty large margin. But we were, kind of thinking maybe the other districts come in. And even after, the first district, but even after the first district came in, Sarah Gideon was still trailing, and it was quite surprising to say the least. Sarah Gideon severely underperformed Susan Collins. Look at this. It is one of the reddest states on this map. And I got to say, I'm very surprised. I was expecting Sarah Gideon to perform at the same level as Joe Biden, and maybe even a little bit better. I didn't expect it to be, this much of a loss for her. And yes, I did need to make the point here. It did go into likely. It went in around 8 points, 7 points. The thing is, Maine has ranked choice voting, where essentially you vote for your first choice first. You number the candidates in how much you prefer them, like 1, 2, 3, 4 first. Your first choice votes are counted. If no candidate gets a majority over 50% of the first choice votes, then you take the second choice votes and you redistribute them to the candidates. So the first choice votes showed Gideon with 46%, and it also showed the independent candidate Lisa Savage with around 5%. Now, it is expected that those votes probably would have went to Sarah Gideon if Susan Collins were to fall below 50%, which it is possible that she might fall below 50%, but I don't think it will impact much. She will still win. But I think it was interesting to see that. So I think that it definitely did go more than 7% from what it looks like right now. But after you redistribute those Lisa Savage votes, which I'm not sure if they're going to happen or not, it went in a lead margin, which is still, I got to say, very surprising. We did not expect Maine at all to turn red. Is there anything else you want to add, Eric?
Yeah, and back to that point that, we assumed every race was going to go like Donald Trump's situation, But again, I guess Susan Collins is just a candidate that people see that has served in the Senate despite her unpopularity and despite what the polls were saying. And, people just knew her and they went along with, they just wanted to flow and they put her in. And that's exactly, what we did not think would happen. We did not consider that not everyone is Donald Trump. No, not every Republican is Donald Trump.
Right. So I think that the polls definitely swung to the left on both the presidential and Senate level, but it swung to the left a lot more on the Senate level, to be quite honest here. And I did want to add one more point, which was about Susan Collins voting on the Amy Coney Barrett hearings, on the confirmation vote. I think it might have made a slight difference here. Her voting no on Amy Coney Barrett could have slightly impacted the race here, because she was trying to tell people that she was more of this nonpartisan, independent voter, because that is what the voters of Maine want. So that's very interesting. I was also, just a fun fact here, I was hearing that Angus King, who is the other senator from Maine, he might be chosen to join Biden's cabinet in his administration. And I thought that was quite interesting to see if Jeanette Mills, who is the governor of Maine, who is a Democrat, might appoint Sarah Gideon as Angus King's replacement. I thought that was really interesting to read. All right, we have 2 states left, I believe, right? The states of North Carolina and Montana. Oh, plus we got to talk about Georgia as well. These two were the 2 that we got wrong. And I got to say, I'll start with Montana. I was extremely surprised by how much Steve Daines won by. We were expecting a lean, and we were thinking, okay, maybe 2 points or 3 points. It went in 10 points. 10. It was very shocking. I think, again, the problem was Donald Trump was at the top of the ballot, and there wasn't enough split balloting. There wasn't enough people voting for Donald Trump and then voting for Steve Bullock on the Senate. In 2016, Steve Bullock got that. Donald Trump was on the top of the ballot. He was on the governor level. He got reelected. And sadly for him, that didn't happen for him this time. When it first came out that Steve Bullock was running for the Senate, I was thinking, maybe Montana could turn blue. But I was very surprised that it went in this large of a margin. I remember texting Eric that Texas, I believe, went to John Cornyn less than Montana did for Steve Daines. And I thought that was surprising, because since the beginning, we've brushed off Texas as, the GOP is going to win this one for sure. Montana, on the other hand, if you look at our beginning videos, our first few videos on this, we thought Montana actually had a chance of going to Steve Bullock. Sometimes we put this one as tilt R. And again, I think the polls definitely got this state wrong. Mm-hmm. And looking at the map again, Steve Bullock did outperform Donald Trump. He outperformed Joe Biden for sure, but it wasn't enough. And throughout this map, there's that same pattern there. It's that people didn't split ballot enough. The split balloters didn't have too much of an impact on this.
Yeah, and the thing is that I kind of noticed, I just didn't end up making this point in previous videos, but I feel like Steve Bullock was really gradually losing steam, per se, the more time went on, because, at one point this race was very contested, and the Republicans and the GOP came together and they were like, okay, we have to rebrand ourselves. We have this problem at us, and now we have to do something about it. So they spent a lot of money, and they raised a lot of money on ad spending, especially in Montana. There were a lot of ads, and we actually did talk about this a little, about, Mitch McConnell and Ted Cruz and Nikki Haley coming together to advocate for Steve Daines. Why, in the meantime, Steve Bullock, I didn't see a lot of ads for Steve Bullock. I saw some general ads in terms of flipping the Senate, but nothing specifically for Steve Bullock. And I think, I didn't see any crazy ad spending that Steve Bullock was trying to do. I just really think he underestimated how well Steve Daines was going to do, and that's one thing that really contributed to his downfall.
Very interesting point there. And now to the final state of North Carolina. I wasn't seeing this one coming. I mean, I thought there was definitely a chance of this happening, but I definitely was not expecting it. I remember Eric calling me on election night telling me, like, oh, wow, Tom Tillis is up by 2. I was like, that's very interesting. And I was decently surprised because we had this one as lean D. It ended up being lean R. We thought it would go in, 2 points, 3 points to Cal Cunningham. We didn't think that scandal would do anything to him, to Cal Cunningham. We thought, it's personal business. It's not going to impact him politically. And I don't think that his downfall was that scandal. I think that for North Carolina ended up, going more Republican than most people kind of expected. For example, on the presidential level, it went lean Republican when we predicted it would go tilt Republican. And we were expecting, North Carolina to have high African American turnout, which would have benefited Cal Cunningham. But I don't think that number was high enough necessarily. And that is what kind of led to Cal Cunningham losing. And it was surprising here as well, because we actually made a video. It was one of actually our more popular videos back in July, polls showing Cal Cunningham up by 13 points. And that was clearly totally wrong. The polls were definitely wrong in the state of North Carolina, for sure. All right. Heading down to Georgia. Georgia, we actually got it partially correct. I mean, we did predict that the special election with Raphael Warnock and Kelly Loeffler would go to a runoff. We got that one correctly. Now, with the Jon Ossoff race versus David Perdue, we predicted it would go tilt R to David Perdue, not from after a runoff. It ended up being a 2-point margin. And it's funny because David Perdue was actually quite close to 50%. It was one day at one time he dropped below the 50% threshold, and now they're into a runoff. So I think this was definitely very interesting to see. With our future predictions for these 2 races, we'll look at those in separate videos, but I do think that Republicans are favored to take both seats, not by much, but we'll continue to make videos analyzing this. And that was our review of our 2020 Senate prediction. If you like this video, please hit the like button. If you like our content, please hit subscribe. We'll see you possibly in an Among Us live stream tomorrow. We'll see. I'll make a community statement and we'll see what happens.
See ya.